In the village of Igbo, people said Somma was born with her eyes open. Not because she arrived crying less than other children, or because she walked early, but because she noticed. While other girls chased fireflies at dusk, Somma watched how the insects moved before the rain. While boys argued over games, she listened for the moment when pride overtook reason. She did not just hear the word, she read it, as one reads a familiar book whose pages have been turned many times. By the time Somma reached womanhood, her name carried weight. When boundary disputes rose between families, elders called for her. When farmers argued about planting seasons, they waited for her opinion. Even the diviner, old Mama Ao, once said quietly, "This one sees patterns the ancestors whisper, even without drums." Praise followed her like a shadow, but so did unease. The elders of Igbo were men and women who trusted the past the way one trusts the earth beneath bare feet. To them, knowledge was not something to be chased, it was something inherited. Somma's wisdom, sharp and fast, made them uncomfortable. She asked questions that traditions did not answer. She solved problems without consulting rituals. And worst of all, she was often right. One evening, during the season when the moon hung low and red, a stranger arrived. He wore cowrie shells tied around his wrist and carried a staff polished smooth by many hands. The villagers recognized him immediately, a traveling diviner known for words that did not wander. The elders welcomed him with colonnots and silence. After the rituals were complete, the diviner's eyes settled on Somma. "You," he said, pointing his staff toward her. "Stand." A hush fell. Somma stood, calm but curious. The diviner inhaled deeply, as though listening to a voice only he could hear. Then he spoke. "Your eyes," he said slowly, "will break the roof that shelters you. The higher you climb, the closer ruin comes to your blood." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Somma did not bow her head. She did not tremble. Instead, she smiled, not in mockery, but in certainty. "With respect," she said, her voice steady, "roofs collapse because they are poorly built, not because someone stands tall beneath them." The diviner studied her for a long moment. "Be careful, child," he warned. "Wisdom that refuses counsel becomes hunger that eats itself." That night, while others whispered fear into their mouths, Somma lay awake thinking, not of doom, but of proof. If destiny existed, she would test it. If fate had rules, she would learn them. And if the ancestors believed they could write her future without her consent, she would revise their work. From that day on, Somma became deliberate. She advised her family to sell land before the rains failed, and they profited. She discouraged her younger brother from joining a risky caravan, and bandits later proved her right. Each success sharpened her confidence. Each avoided disaster felt like a victory over invisible hands. The elders grew quiet around her. "She no longer asks," one said. "She no longer listens," said another. But Somma believed listening was overrated when one could think. Slowly, without meaning to, she began to reshape Igbo. Traditions were adjusted. Rituals shortened. Decisions made faster, cleaner, without waiting for signs in smoke or dreams. The village prospered. Yet something else began to wither. People stopped gathering at night to tell stories. The drum circle thinned. Elders were consulted last, not first. The village moved efficiently, but without warmth. Somma noticed this, but dismissed it as nostalgia. "Progress always feels lonely at first," she told her mother. Her mother said nothing, only watching her daughter with eyes that carried both pride and fear. Then came the dreams. At first, Somma saw a roof cracking, hairline fractures no one else noticed. Then rain falling inside houses that stood under clear skies. Then footsteps echoing behind her, always stopping when she turned. She woke each time with a pounding heart, and each time, she laughed it off by morning. "Dreams," she said, "are only thoughts without discipline. But destiny, like a patient creditor, does not shout. It waits. And as Somma stood higher than ever, admired, relied upon, unquestioned, the roof above her began to creak. Quietly. Unforgivingly. Somma's voice soon became the first sound decisions listened to in Igbo. Before the elders could clear their throats, people turned to her. Before rituals were prepared, her opinion was already shaping the outcome. What once required consultations with ancestors now required only Somma's reasoning. And because her advice continued to work, no one questioned the change, at first. When the river began to shrink earlier than expected, Somma advised redirecting water channels without performing the river appeasement rites. Water follows the land, she said confidently. Not songs. The channels worked. Crops survived. Praise rose like smoke in her name. When hunters complained of dwindling game, she suggested regulated hunting seasons instead of ancestral offerings. The forest recovered. Again, she was right. Each victory tightened her grip, not through force, but through trust. People began to say, if Somma has spoken, there is no need to ask further. That was when the elders realized they were no longer leading, they were being tolerated. Boba Keshin, the oldest among them, confronted her one afternoon beneath the Iroko tree. You are clever, he said, leaning on his staff. But cleverness does not replace memory. Somma smiled politely. Memory without understanding is just habit. The old man's eyes darkened. An understanding without humility is blindness. Somma said nothing. In her heart, she had already moved past him. She began making decisions for her family too, careful ones, logical ones. She advised her mother to stop attending long communal gatherings. They waste energy, she said. Rest is more productive. She encouraged her brother, Tari, to abandon his dream of apprenticing with the drummers. There is no future in rhythm, she told him. Learn numbers. Learn trade. Tari obeyed, but something quiet left his eyes. At night, Somma reviewed her choices like a strategist reviewing battles. She saw only success. The prophecy felt increasingly foolish, an echo from a time when people blamed shadows for their own mistakes. Yet signs continued to appear. The diviner staff appeared in her dreams, blocking her path. The drums she dismissed echoed in her sleep, though no one played them. A roof beam in her family's house developed a crack, small, harmless, easy to ignore. Then came the day she chose speed over ceremony. A neighboring village requested aid during a brewing conflict. The elders insisted on consultation, on offerings, on time. Somma disagreed. Delay will worsen the situation, she argued. We act now or lose influence. She led the intervention herself, swift, decisive, admired. The conflict resolved quickly. But resentment took root where patience would have softened hearts. The elders gathered that night without inviting her. What we are losing, Mama Deka whispered, cannot be measured like grain. Meanwhile, Somma felt invincible. Each time destiny seemed to approach, she stepped aside. Each time danger hinted at arrival, she redirected its path. She began to believe something dangerous, that fate only ruled those too slow to think ahead. What she did not see was the cost accumulating quietly around her. Her brother stopped speaking freely. Her mother began praying alone. The elders' greetings grew shorter. The village still prospered, but it no longer felt like home. One evening, as Somma walked alone, she noticed something unsettling. The roofs of many houses, strong, untouched, had begun to creak when the wind passed. Not breaking. Just warning. And for the first time, Somma felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. But the faint discomfort of being almost wrong. The first thing Somma noticed was the silence. It crept into Igbo slowly, like mist at dawn, thin, almost invisible, yet impossible to ignore once it settled. People still greeted one another. Children still ran through the paths. Markets still opened with the sun. But the laughter that once spilled freely now arrived cautiously, as though afraid of being corrected. Somma sensed the shift, though she could not name it. She told herself it was maturity. Growth always trimmed excess, she believed. A village, like a mind, could not afford unnecessary noise. Yet the signs followed her. Her brother Tari began returning home late, avoiding her gaze. When she asked him about his studies, his answers were short and careful, as though he were reciting memorized lines. "You no longer drum," she said one evening, noticing the calabash dust-free in the corner. "There is no time," Tari replied. "Numbers demand attention." Somma nodded, satisfied. But that night, she heard soft tapping in the dark, fingers drumming patterns against a sleeping mat. The sound stopped the moment she stirred. Her mother, once lively, now moved like someone carrying an unseen load. She prayed more, spoke less. When Somma offered advice, her mother listened, but no longer asked questions. "You are tired," Somma said. Her mother smiled faintly. "No. I am quiet." Then came the dreams that no longer waited for sleep. Somma began seeing patterns in daylight that unsettled her. Roof beams creaked without wind. Clay pots cracked for no reason. Birds took flight all at once, leaving the sky abruptly empty. Still, logic stood firm. Coincidence, she told herself. The mind invents meaning when it is bored. The real fracture came during the harvest gathering. For generations, the festival had been led by the elders, guided by drums, chants, and long stories that braided memory with hope. This year, Somma redesigned it. Shorter speeches. Fewer rituals. More efficiency. "We honor abundance by using time wisely," she explained. The festival proceeded smoothly, but without warmth. The drums sounded restrained. The dancers moved carefully, watching her face as if approval were required for joy. That night, Boba Keshin stood alone beneath the Iroko tree, tears cutting clean lines down his face. "The ancestors are being starved," he whispered. Somma overheard, but said nothing. Later that week, Tari fell ill. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Just a slow fading. His strength weakened. His appetite vanished. The healer recommended rest, prayer, and drumming, old methods Somma dismissed gently. "Let me observe," she said. "Let me understand the pattern first." Days passed. Tari grew quieter. One night, he finally spoke. "Sister," he said softly, "do you ever wonder what happens to paths we never walk?" Somma frowned. "Unwalked paths lead nowhere." Tari smiled weakly. "Sometimes they lead home." He slept. By morning, his fever had broken, but something in Somma had not. For the first time, doubt did not knock. It sat down. She began to realize the cost of being right had never been immediate. It had been gradual, paid in silences, in missed songs, in warmth traded for order. The prophecy returned to her thoughts, not as a threat, but as a mirror. Your rise will break the roof that shelters you. What if the roof was not disaster? What if it was connection? Outside, the wind rose. Across the village, roofs creaked together, one long, uneasy breath. And Somma, who had always trusted her mind, felt the unfamiliar weight of something she could not calculate. Loss, still gathering itself. The day destiny spoke back. Destiny did not arrive with thunder. It came on a morning that looked like every other morning in Igbo. The sun rose gently. Goats bleated. Women swept their compounds. Somma woke with the strange heaviness that had followed her for days, a feeling like standing beneath a roof that had begun to sag, though no beam had yet fallen. By midday, the river swelled. It should not have. The rains had been light. The channels Somma designed were working too well. Water rushed faster than the land could hold, pushing against banks never meant to feel such pressure. When the first shout came from the river's edge, Somma ran. She took charge instantly, directing people with practiced authority. Paths were cleared. Children lifted. Valuables moved. Everything she did was correct. And yet, water rose. A section of the embankment collapsed. Not the old one the elders had warned about, but the newly redirected channel Somma herself had approved. The force of the river changed direction violently, surging toward the heart of the village. Panic spread. In the chaos, Somma heard drums. Not played by hands, but rolling thunder echoing through her chest. The rhythm matched the dreams. The same pattern Tari once tapped in the dark. "Close the east path," she shouted. Too late. Water slammed into the central compounds. Roofs groaned. Walls softened. Homes that had stood for generations began to sink, one by one. Then the roof of our own family house cracked open. A beam split, clean, final. Somma froze. In that moment, the prophecy found its voice. Your rise will break the roof that shelters you. This was not punishment. It was consequence. The channels that saved crops had spared the river. The rituals she shortened had once delayed action long enough for nature to breathe. The elders she sidelined had remembered floods from before memory learned to write. By evening, the river retreated, come again, as if nothing had happened. But Igbo was changed. Families huddled in silence. Elders sat among ruins. No one looked at Somma with anger. That hurt more. Baba Keshin approached her slowly. You fought destiny, he said softly. And destiny waited. Somma knelt for the first time in her life. Not in strategy. In surrender. Tears soaked the mud beneath her knees. I wanted to protect us, she whispered. The old man nodded. And you did, until you decided protection meant control. That night, Somma slept beneath open sky. No roof dared stand above her. And for the first time, she dreamed without answers. Only listening. When morning came, it found Somma sitting exactly where the night had left her, beneath the open sky, her back to the broken walls of what had once been her family home. The village stirred slowly, as though afraid that moving too quickly might wake another disaster. People stepped carefully, speaking in low voices. No one accused her. No one praised her. They simply passed by, carrying the weight of loss like a shared burden. Somma rose and began to help. She lifted fallen mats, carried water, held crying children. For the first time, she did not give instructions. She did not calculate outcomes. She listened, to grief, to anger, to exhaustion. Each voice landed in her chest like a stone. Her mother approached near midday. You stayed, her mother said. Somma nodded. I didn't know where else to go. Her mother touched her cheek gently. That is a beginning. The elders gathered at sunset. Not to judge, but to decide the future of Igbo. Somma stood at the edge of the circle, silent. When Baba Keshin gestured for her to speak, she shook her head. I have spoken enough, she said. Now I will learn how to hear. The elders exchanged glances. Mama Deko spoke. Wisdom is not only seeing far. It is knowing when to stop walking. That night, drums returned. Softly at first. Hesitant. Then stronger, led by Tari, whose hands trembled as they remembered joy. Somma watched from a distance, tears tracing paths down her face. She did not step forward. Weeks passed. Rebuilding began. Slowly. Deliberately. With rituals restored, not as obstacles, but as pauses. Somma walked beside everyone else, never ahead. When asked for advice, she offered thoughts, but waited for elders to finish speaking before hers took shape. Her certainty faded. Something better replaced it. One evening, as new roofs rose, Somma noticed something remarkable. They were lower than before. Stronger. Built together. Baba Keshin found her watching. "You could have left," he said. "I thought wisdom meant standing above," Somma replied. "Now I see it means standing among." The old man smiled. Years later, travelers would speak of Igbo not as the village of disaster, but as the village that learned balance. They spoke of a woman who once tried to outrun destiny and learned instead to walk with it. Somma never became the loudest voice again. But she became the truest one. And when elders ended their stories at night, they always said, "Moral lessons. Wisdom that does not kneel will one day be forced to bow. But wisdom that listens becomes a roof no storm can break." Thank you for watching and supporting this channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Hit the bell button for more videos.